Well, I know it's been a minute, but welcome back to my segment of book reviews that nobody asked for. On today's book reviews that nobody asked for, The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. Now, I will admit I have read this before. I read it frequently in middle school and high school, but it is an excellent book and I've never seen people review it. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. So for those of you unfamiliar, it is a children's book. Most of the copies that you'll see here that it mentions an illustrator. Jules Pfeiffer is the illustrator. This is the common copy you'll find. Here is an example of some of the illustrations that are in them. So the book follows Milo, who is the main character, who is kind of a ho-hum child that doesn't really think about a lot of stuff. One might even say that this is kind of a coming of age of self-realization in one's place in the world. It's definitely a coming of age style book. And in this book, Milo comes home from school one day to the Phantom Tollbooth. That has a toll that you pay, and then you can get in this little car and go off to these fantastical places. The book is very much in the vein of wordplay that Pilgrim's Progress is, if you've ever read Pilgrim's Progress, where they're very on-the-nose phrases, right? So, for instance, there's an island at one point in the book called Conclusions, and one arrives at conclusions by jumping to conclusions. There are things like that. But the premise of the book, and again, if you have not read the book, I don't know why you're watching a book review about it, but it turns out that two princesses, Rhyme and Reason, have been banished by the two kings, Azaz, who's in charge of, the words town, I can't think of the name of it right now. Digitopolis is the name of the other town, which is run by the mathematician, but their brothers, Dictionopolis and Digitopolis. One is words, one is numbers. They banned Rhyme and Reason. And so Milo gets sent on this quest to bring Rhyme and Reason back to the land. And it's just a fun, quirky book with all sorts of ridiculous wordplay with coming of age things and dealing with demons. There's the demon of insecurity that they come across at one point. It's a very silly book. It's very much old school language and things that we don't use anymore. In fact, I got really confused for about a chapter and a half. There's a character called the Den, all uppercase when his name shows up. D-Y-N-N-E is his name. And in my head, I kept pronouncing it as Dinna. But it's Din, and they point out later on why. It's because there's an old school phrase about if somebody's making a big fuss that I wish somebody would knock that den off, because in that part of the book they're talking about sounds, both awful sounds, which Dr. Discord is in charge of those, and the more pleasant sounds, which the sound keeper, I believe her name is in charge of. So as you can see, very silly, whimsical sort of book. The characters are rather endearing. It's a very quick read. I would give this an 8 out of 10. It's, again, a very sweet coming-of-age, nostalgic book for me. Very fantasy, very, I wouldn't say fourth wall breaks, because it's not like the character exactly talks to you, but it's very much that kind of old school, like Victorian era children's kind of trippy thing going on. So think like Through the Looking Glass and things like that from the Alice in Wonderland franchise, and some of L. Frank Baum's, if you've ever read the Wizard of Oz series. There's kind of that trippy high fantasy stuff that's going on there too, and that's very much in the vein of this book. So The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster, highly recommended. Again, most copies are the illustrated copy. I got this one from the Mid-Continent Public Library here in the Missouri, Kansas City area. Highly recommended. Again, probably an 8 out of 10. So that is the book review that nobody asked for The Phantom Tollbooth. The next one that I'll be doing is book reviews that my wife asked for, which is the next book in the Accord of Thorns and Roses franchise by Sarah J. Maas. I forget the name of the next book, but for those of you that are familiar with that franchise, it's the real skinny one. Most of the books in that franchise are thick, but this one's a skinny one. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.